What made you a star? What movie made you a star?
I don't know. I think it was a gradual thing, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think that I had a nice career of various jobs, theater and movies, television, and on this track I had just the Horton Foote projects.
Yeah.
Starting with Killing Mockingbird, Tomorrow, The Chase, Tender Mercies, Convicts.
Yeah.
And Horton's a wonderful ride. Had I never had another career, that would have been a wonderful career. But then I had this career, and I think what made it was a catalyst to put us all into what you might call somewhat of stardom was The Godfather.
Yeah.
That was, although I'd done stuff before, that would kind of propel guys. Their careers went to a more obvious way than mine did. I've always been kind of a late bloomer. Now I'm kind of reaping the benefits of those earlier years more, because it seemed to be more parts are coming my way now,
how does that
more than ever.
Because why is that?
I don't know. Just that maybe it's my time.
Robert Duvall was an actor's actor, much admired and award-nominated for his ability to get inside a wide range of characters in memorable movies like Apocalypse Now and The Godfather. Duvall died at his Middleburg, Virginia home on February 15, 2026. He was 95. The son of an admiral, Duvall attended Principia College and served in the Army during the Korean War. His early acting was primarily in theater until he played Boo Radley in the film To Kill a Mockingbird. That led to a series of more important and character performances in the 1970s. Major Frank Burns in MASH, Consigliere Tom Hagen in The Godfather, Lieutenant Colonel Bill Kilgore in Apocalypse Now, and as a conflicted father and military man in The Great Santini. In 1983, Duvall received the Academy Award for Best Actor for his portrayal of a washed-up country and western singer in Tender Mercies. On television, he won praise for his portrayal of Joseph Stalin and also Adolf Eichmann. He also directed a film about his love of tango called Assassination Tango. In all of his work, as the lead or in a character role, Robert Duvall always showed a huge respect for the craft of filmmaking. He continued to act until late in his life. His many famous colleagues have shown their admiration for him and his work with the tribute they have flowed in to his loving family who were with him when he died.
When you play a role like this as Felix Bush, and you being 80?
Yeah, I will be.
Will be at some
soon.
point. Yes.
Soon. You'll be way after me, but soon.
What do you reach into that idea? I mean, does this make you think about mortality?
I'm sure it does. You mean doing a
part like this
yeah.
to remind you that, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. I've told this story to many people before. You know, I always told Horton Foote he should see this movie. He was 93 and still writing.
Right.
Well, what happened was I wanted him to see this movie because it reminded me of his writing. So the first day I was giving this speech onto the crowd for their benefit.
Yeah.
The mule comes on with a coffin for when I really die.
Yeah.
The casket.
Right.
And the phone rings off camera while the camera's rolling. And my wife gets the message that Horton Foote just died.
My God.
It was like full circle from To Kill a Mockingbird. It was like eerie. It was like he was there. Yeah. It was kind of beautiful but strange and sad. Very poignant.
He was the great American voice for you.
One of the greats of everybody. Now he's getting realized more and more and more. I've met young actors that are very good stage actors who never heard of Horton Foote. I say, how could you not heard of Horton Foote? He's one of our great writers. But I think more and more he will be recognized.
Did Boo come right out of the script, or did Boo come right out of your heart?
Boo Radley?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I went to do the movie in the last part of the shoot, and the character comes in the last part of the book.
Yeah.
And when I left my apartment in New York, I got a telegram from the author, Harper Lee, and it said, "Hey there, Boo." It was like a telegram, congratulations, doing the part. So I went to California, and I went on the set, and I was greeted by everyone. It was the end of the movie, the last 10 days, the end of the book, the last character. So it came on, and I just, Gregory Peck was a wonderful gentleman, Very gracious man with a lot of grace. Horton Foote was there, as he always is in his movies, and I felt very welcomed. And I just, once again, followed my instincts for this part. It was just a lovely part.
But the eyes did it, didn't they?
Yeah, kind of, but you don't think of that. The only thing I thought of then was when I did that part, as I did it, I got goose pimples. So I said, if I'm a goose pimple actor, I know I'm on the right track. At that time. I'm not saying I always get goose, but I did then.
Tony Scott, as I said in my opening, this actor's gone nearly 50 years in movies virtually without a false note. Now, as self-serving as it might be, tell me why that's been possible for you.
Well, I'm sure this guy gave me a bad review once. I mean, all these guys do. I mean, I don't read them. Believe me, I don't read them.
You don't read any of them?
No, I don't.
Good or bad? No.
I don't read them, no. The best reviews I ever got were for American Buffalo on Broadway and Lonesome Dove, and they were good reviews and really exceptional, and I didn't read them. I'll hear about them sometimes but I don't go after them to read them because I just, why?
What?
Why?
Why?
But I try to be truthful when I act. I try to keep it down to what we're doing now. Bobby Duvall and Charlie Rose just talking and listening. Yeah. If you could, and somebody said, "Well, we saw you in the movie. You just played yourself." I said, "Yeah, well, try it. Try it. See how easy it is. Just easy, Talk, listen. You talk. It's not that easy always."
Yeah, it has everything about it. It has making it sound like you've just had the thought. It has a sense of listening so that it flows naturally from where the conversation was. It has to do with stripping away everything except the moment.
Exactly, the moment. And I think that there are bad still, but I think the directors today, the good ones, are better than the old guys
How so?
in those areas. When I looked at True Grit, it's not one of my favorite performances.
Yeah.
When I did that movie, the director said to one of the actors, "When I say action, tense up, goddammit."
That's not the way you do it.
Now, can you say that to Joe Montana in the Super Bowl?
No.
You don't do. There's a difference between intensity and tenseness.
Yeah.
And today, a good director would say, "Give me less. Don't do anything." And I think if you can be relaxed enough, I think that you can start from zero, and possibly end with zero in a scene, but letting the process take you to the result rather than playing the result. Just see where it goes. In the old days, they wanted something, energy. And that movie, True Grit, if you looked at the ground, the guy would say, "Cut, son, what are you looking at?" It had to be like a proscenium, some of those directors then. And I'm not saying they didn't make good movies then. They did, but I think from The Godfather on down, I think the movies are better today, I think. Maybe the stories aren't better. And I'm not saying the actors are any less interesting. But I think the directors in those days were authoritative and they wanted certain things. Gene Hackman once said that they asked Henry Ford to come on the set to direct one scene with a bunch of soldiers. He went down the soldiers.
John Ford?
Yeah, up. Everybody had to be up in those days, like energy. Yeah. It's not about that really. That's a secondary thing, energy. And energy can come from a person rather than just an arbitrary outside force.
As we were watching that, and the Godfather scene came on in that composite.
Yeah.
You said that's the best.
Well, for that kind of storytelling, Coppola was masterful, absolutely. I was fortunate in the last part of the 20th century to be in the two biggest film episodes, Godfather 1 and 2,
Yes.
Lonesome Dove.
Right.
Although The Godfather was better directed, actually. And I walked into the dressing room the one day on Lonesome Dove. I said, "Boys, we're making The Godfather of Westerns." But that was my favorite part.
Oh, that was the favorite part?
That was my favorite part.
Because?
Interesting guy. Just a guy that, he said, why did we kill all the people in this country that were interesting to begin with? He was one of those guys that went after Indians, but, he was a Texas Ranger, loved women. He didn't care if they were whores. He didn't, I always said, let the English play Hamlet and King Lear. I'll play Augustus McCrae. A great character in literature. I mean,
a true American character.
Yeah, I mean, my ex-wife said, I read a book I like better than Dostoevsky, Lonesome Dove. It's a great American novel. And we tried to come up to equal it. Whether we did or not, I don't know. The Godfather, the novel was okay, and the movie surpassed it.
Tell me about Marlon.
Marlon?
Yeah.
Interesting guy. When I first met him on The Chase.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We talked.
With Robert Redford.
Yeah, we talked, and we did this and that. And And then he knew that, he wants everybody to come, people want to come to him.
Yeah.
We talk, oh boy, this is going to be great. Then for like 8 weeks, he would never say hello. He'd walk right by you. Right by you, like, okay, knowing that you wanted something. But I learned something from him on the chase. I noticed he would be sitting over here. They say, okay, it's your time. He'd be talking, and then he'd go, action, cut, back to talking. It was all the same. There was no beginning. I said, boy, this is interesting acting. No beginning. It's all the same.
It was a continuum.
Yes, it's him, continuing.
You have said that Hollywood tends to patronize Southern characters in films, particularly if they're religious.
Do you think so?
Well, give me an example. I'll tell you if I agree.
Well, I mean, I know it was presented as a musical in a way, but that Brother, Where Art Thou? I thought the people were like hillbillies, like cornball.
I agree.
The music was great.
Absolutely great.
Yeah, but I mean, other things too, Like I think that I think I may have mentioned to you this before one time. There was a guy had a service in New York, a car service. He said when he was in the Army in the South, all those guys, those in the hills and valleys and rivers, way in the deep South, constantly outscore the New Yorkers on the aptitude tests. So you cannot pass over these people. You can't. I defended Lucas Black by a director that once put him down, who said he was like a cornpone hillbilly. Very talented young man.
So what did you do?
I got in the guy's face.
What did you do?
Not really, but I just.
What did you do?
I said, "What are you talking? You don't know what you. I just you don't know what you're talking about."
You said to in that manner? Is that the way?
I got a little hot with the guy. He was a well-known director.
So dial that up for me.
And then he offered me a part in his movie. I turned it down. It's that Jesse James movie. They did it up in Canada. But Lucas, just because he has a very thick, he tries hard maybe not to get rid of it. He has that thick Alabama accent.
Right.
But he's a very talented young actor, and he's a bright young. He married a woman who's a young woman who's a prosecuting attorney from Missouri.
There you go.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you married a young woman from Argentina, for God's sake.
She could have been a prosecuting attorney.
Now, do you still dance?
Socially.
But last time I met you were, not last time I met you, but the last time I saw you in Argentina, in Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
You were intense about it.
We had a wonderful time down there. Yeah, it was nice. But I get a little inhibited down there because no matter how good they are down there, they criticize each other like crazy.
Yeah.
There was one guy that he's built like this big, Oniken. What a dancer. He got second in the world competition. He said backstage, I'll bet my sister against your sister. I'll beat you tonight. And the older people usually give the young people encouragement. Yeah. The older people said to him, why are you here? You're a terrible dancer. Get out of here. I mean, so it's a very strangely competitive, small world, the tango world in Buenos Aires.
But you made that movie. What was it? Assassination
Tango, yeah.
Why did you made that? Because that was something you wanted to do?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, Francis helped.
Did you direct that yourself?
Yeah, I directed it and wrote it. And Luciana, she stole the show. She was terrific.
She was good, though. She was.
She was terrific in
it, yeah. This is what you said about the becoming a character. You become the character, but it's really you turning yourself in a certain way, as if you've become the character. But you cannot lose sight of who and what you are. You have one set of emotions, one psyche, one soul, and you don't become another thing.
Absolutely. I stand by that. Because it's acting. In the back of your head, Stanislavski said, don't know much about him, but he said in the back of your head, there's something that approves, not in the negative way, it approves of what you're doing. So it's acting. It's fun.
Not becoming the...
You do and you don't. Not really. I mean, you could say I became that character and you could be doing false acting. Now, you know what I'm saying? But it's you have to start from yourself.
What's the best lesson you've ever learned about acting?
The best lesson?
Yes.
Well, I guess as good as any is when I said about Brando, before the take, during the take, and after the take, there was the sameness,
So what about those people that stay in character on a set?
God, they must wear them out. I would wear me out. When I did Get Low, the most important thing on the set is the chair for me. If I don't have my bed in the dressing room. So now the first day of Get Low, there was a dark room where I put my chair so I could sit down between takes. Yeah. Everybody thought I was in there keeping in character. I just wanted a place to sit down and rest till the next take. Nothing to do with staying in character.
There was also, you improvised in that scene, in that movie with...
Oh, yeah. Vigo, The Road.
Yeah, Vigo.
I never worked with a better guy than Vigo. Wonderful act and just a terrific guy.
So there was a scene.
Yeah.
In which you said to him, as I hear the story, I got something.
You said, hold on, I'm going to try something.
Hold on, I'm going to try something.
Yeah. And I figured it needed something. So I'm not going to ask permission from the director because he may say no, especially some of these Australian guys. So I said, I'm going to try something. So it wasn't in the script or the book, beautiful novel by Cormac McCarthy.
Right.
I gave my character a son that he was looking for on the road that he couldn't find and wondered where he was. He was looking for his son. And I improvised that sign that scene as the camera rolled, talking about and it gave me something very emotional and a great inner thing, which worked, and everybody seemed to.
But you said to Vigo, "I'm going to do this."
Yeah, I said, "Hold on, I'm going to do something here." Yeah. I knew I was going to do so. I didn't quite know how it was going to go.
And when they looked at the rushes, they liked it and they left it in.
They liked it a lot, and I guess Cormac McCarthy liked it okay. Because they didn't take it out. I thought, now I gave him a son, I should have given him a grandson.
Cormac McCarthy must love you.
I guess I only...
You've never had a conversation with him?
I met him at I met him way back. Here's a guy that writes about violence, like Borges in Argentina.
Right.
He writes about violence. He's a middle-class guy, great dark scenes. And I met him in somebody's backyards playing croquet. Croquet. Unbelievable. That's the only time I've met him, way back.
Did he say anything?
No, this was a long time ago. He was a nice man. Yeah, very something about him.
Did he come on when you were making the movie?
No, I wanted to meet him. He never came on when I was there. He came on other scenes at other times of the
This was Lonesome Dove.
No, The Road.
But you think Lonesome Dove was the best thing?
For me, it was my favorite part.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in a while. When I took out a part I did recently, I hadn't seen it in years, and I felt okay about it when I played Stalin. I felt okay.
But
the final scene with my daughter,
right?
I don't think I can do any better. When I did certain things in it, and it was very unorganized with HBO over there. Nikita Mikhailkov, the father of Andrei Konchalovsky, and Nikita Mikhailkov was still living and was Stalin's poet. 8 times he wrote for him. And I never knew, they never introduced me to him for my research. But when he saw the movie, he really liked it. I liked what I did. So that could be the best review I ever got, because he liked what I did as Stalin.
That scene was as good as you ever were?
Well, it was maybe. It's right up there, I think. I don't see my movies that often. I don't go back.
You don't read the reviews, you don't see the movies. So
well, I see them once.
You're a moving on man.
I like to, maybe go back. But I felt I really connected with something there.
It's an honor to have you here.
Great to be here again. Otra vez. Muchas gracias.
Bobby Duvall, one of the greats. Robert Duvall has created some of our most memorable film characters, from Major Frank Burns in MASH and Tom Hagen in The Godfather to Lieutenant Colonel Kilgore in Apocalypse Now and Max Sledge in Tender Mercies. Someone said about you once that, I think it may have been Horton, said that Horton Foote said, Bobby has...
Yeah, we're good friends.
has an affinity for non-metropolitan types.
Right.
You think that's true?
Perhaps, yeah, I think so. But yet, the film I directed was about a gypsy boy.
And that's about in the city of New York.
City as you can get.
Right, exactly.
And, that may be true. That's why I try to do other things, We're trying to develop a film now where I play an over-the-hill player soccer coach from Scotland.
Yeah.
So that would be out of the realm of, and I've played Eichmann and Stalin. So I like to do things outside of America, not just that. But I do like to do American things, and especially, the South is like below the Mason-Dixon line. Is not that they have a corner and everything, but the juxtaposition of the races, the music is interesting, the storytelling is interesting, the writing is interesting. It's an interesting mix, maybe different from the other parts of the country. But in that interesting mix, you never tend to see it in films because it tends to be patronized through the ages of filmmaking.
Stereotypes and patronizing.
It's easier to do it that way and keep the recycling going of the education process in the United States because that's what people come to expect. If you're always looking for a hook, for instance, with a preacher, a guy that's like a charlatan, that's easier to sell tickets and sell the movie than if it's a guy that's just a human being. So I think in other parts of the country get it too, but I think the South has always gotten. I once had a driver from New York City that drove me around in a car, and he said when he was in the Army, almost consistently, guys from the middle of nowhere in the South would outscore the New York guys on the aptitude tests. So, you know, you can't sell people short. You can't sell people short.
You, talking about biographical types, did you say, and I don't know if I got this right, but did you say that Stalin, your performance in Stalin, is a performance that you're as proud of, or you thought it was as good as anything you've done?
Parts of it, not all of it, because it's hard. When you do, you know, there was some people liked it, some people didn't like it. It's like anything. But
the reason it's tough to interrupt you, you're playing evil, and you got to figure out how to play evil and at the same time make it interesting and not.
Plus, the scripts on television, miniseries, can be okay, but at some point in the given 4 hours or whatever you're going to do, you end up acting a history lesson, because the writing has to explain what it's about. So it's not like the top writing in a motion picture script. But no, I did say I think the scene at the end where I talk to my daughter is as good as I've done. And some people say, but I know that Nikita Mikhailkov's father, who I didn't even know was alive, who was Stalin's personal poet, who wrote their national anthem. He worked with Stalin 8 times as a young man, and he liked the movie and said I touched the soul of Stalin. So I probably would listen to him more than I would a negative critic.
Okay, what were you after in terms of that particular piece? Because, and what was the scene with the daughter about that made it interesting for you?
Well,
challenging.
It was a scene of the wife who had committed suicide. Was a big picture on the wall, and I made sure that picture meant something to me, so that when he related to that picture, he became so emotional he couldn't speak. Yeah. So I told Ivan Passer, I said when the camera was back, you better come in if you're coming in, because it's going to happen, and it's not going to happen anymore. So get in quick if you're coming in with a tighter lens, you know. But you know, I'm not saying the whole performance, but that scene was I felt I touched on something that, and I remember what led me on was an illogical set of events or a conversation. This Armenian director said, when you play Stalin, always remember the East. It meant absolutely nothing to me till this day, but yet somehow it meant something to me.
Always remember the East.
The East. It meant nothing to me. It still doesn't, but somehow it meant something to me. Somehow something worked, whatever that meant. Yeah. Potions, poison, the East, you know. Yeah.
You also once said about Stalin, for example, that when you're playing someone that evil, who has those monstrous deeds as a part of his experience, you have to remember behavior. It's behavior that...
And find the contradictions in the guy. Yeah. Find something good about the guy. When I played Eichmann, I had to find he loved his children. He loved his children. Right. And you can't take that away from somebody, you know, I mean. And they're not serial killers, one-to-one. They may do pretty heinous things, but they do love their children.
And Eisenhower?
That's so long ago. Yeah. I mean, he was a wonderful man. I mean, you know, he was a wonderful man, I think. You know, he had something spiritual about him. He had an aura about him. And I had a guy drive me. I like to talk to the drivers, and he said the guy that has the aura today he's driven is General Powell, and I enjoyed meeting General Powell. Eisenhower, it was once again it's like acting a history lesson. So you hope that 2 or 3 of the scenes work, because the whole thing's not going to work as well as a good movie, because the writing becomes very predictable and erudite. I mean, it's like a lesson, a history lesson.
Is the difference in great films beyond great acting and great directing, but one seminal difference between what makes really great properties, the script? I mean, you said that
scripts are important. Oh,
you know, but is it more than important in a sense? I mean, you got to have something that a good actor can deal with. Because you said the problem with miniseries is that you don't see that many great scripts.
I don't think
that you see in a feature.
There's
so many.
The overall arc you can get away with more. Yeah. You know, like we did Lonesome Dove. I mean, to me, I said, let the English play Hamlet and King Lear. I'll play Augustus McCrae. That was like, I could have retired afterwards. I mean, the guy was brilliant. Yeah. Somebody said, when are you going to do another Lonesome Dove? I said, it takes 100 years. Exactly. It's not, and there was a guy, a makeup guy.
McMurtry spoke to you.
Well, he thought I was to play the other part, but I made sure I talked my way into this part.
Yeah.
And there was a guy on the set who was a makeup guy from who loved the Godfather. Always talking about the guys, the wise guys. And I loved Lane. I said, this may be an more important project than the Godfather. What do you mean? How can you say that? Because we work in the middle of Texas. But what I will say is that the overall arc of Lonesome Dove, you know, the defects you can get away with certain casting things or certain faults, the overall arc can erase those to a point. While there's something like The Godfather, the overall arc encompassed something pretty terrific. It was more of a perfect movie than Lonesome Dove. But both had big impacts culturally and kind of film-wise on this nation, I think.
Both of them did, Lonesome Dove
Very
and
much
Godfather.
So. I mean, Lonesome Dove is, I mean, I can go anywhere and people know that. I mean, even in Argentina, they say, "Oh, que tal gus," you know, like they're looped and everything. And different countries, but, you know, in Texas, toll booth operator, you know, it's like, I told Ann Richards when I had breakfast with her, she's a very interesting woman, I said, you know, if I come down here and run against you as governor, I'm going to beat you. She says, well, you're right.
Hey, this was Ann Richards you talked to?
I said, I'm going to beat you. She said, well, you could, she said.
Well, you seem to be, you've never played tennis very much, and you set out to be a very good tennis player, and you did, because you hurt yourself on horseback, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Now I went back to horses.
Now you're back to horses.
Then 3 years ago, I had about the same accident Christopher Reeves had. I flipped the horse flip, and I said, well, now I got to back up off of this.
Tango.
Yeah, and well, I'd rather sprain my ankle dancing tango than break my neck on a jumping horse.
But what is it you become obsessive about?
Well,
you have got to do it.
Well, Arliss Howard, a wonderful young actor, we were in Eichmann together, he called me about 4 years ago, and he said, you know, when you're a young actor coming up, what did you do between jobs to keep from going crazy, the downtime? What did you do? I said, there are three things: hobbies, and more hobbies. I said, it keeps you off of dope, I said. and that's true. I think when you go after a hobby, you want to go out.
Yeah, but I mean, you're like that. I mean, what is people see on the screen is evidently what they same thing that is apparently at work when you pursue a hobby. I mean, you didn't just become an average tennis player. You became very good on the celebrity circuit, didn't you know?
I could beat anybody but Dabney Coleman. I couldn't beat Dabney.
Is that right?
He was the best. Yeah, he played college and everything.
Yeah.
I beat him at doubles, but I haven't played much tennis because I twisted my knee, and I just so you know. But it's nice to have hobbies in downtime. You know, the older I get, I'm going to take up more fly fishing. You know?
Well, I mean, what's next after the tango?
I hope I never give the tango up. Just in
a limited way. I don't get it. That's because I don't know it, but I don't get it.
Well, it's a personal thing, and many people can say the same, I guess. When I go to Argentina, especially in America too, but especially Argentina, and you get into Milonga, and on a nice night, because sometimes you feel self-conscious down there because they're very critical people, but they do accept some things on a certain level. But when you dance counterclockwise, tango, in a Milonga down there, in a seedy, steamy little place, I don't know, it gives you a feeling that's, I don't know what Zen is like, but it gives you a feeling that's it's not this dramatic dance that everybody thinks. It's a very quiet dance, and there's two schools of thought. They do the beautiful stage version that we see up here, but down there in the clubs, and it's fading now, but from the 40s and 50s when they had great dancers, it's like your uncles and your fathers and your mothers would dance at a wedding. It's that concept of simple movement, but not so simple. Just walking. They don't dance it, they walk it, turns, and it's just a wonderful feeling.
What's the movie you want to make?
Well, it's a movie I hopefully maybe can do in the future where it kind of connects New York and Buenos Aires through social dancing through the underworld, because you know and like a guy Petrolio, a great dancer down there, he said, in order to be a good tango dancer, you got to be a pimp, a thief, a bookie, because he worked in a bank. But it's that underworld concept, you know. And it's like Frankie Gio, a friend of mine up here, used to be a bouncer at Roseland. He said, in the 50s, he said, the Italians could jitterbug and the Jews could mambo, he said. You know, so that is that street level thing, you know, of people that can dance well, but the people that don't have to go to dance, the people that go to Arthur Murray sometimes are not the good dancers, really. So it's a special thing, and I have openings down there, the same as I had in the religious community here. If and when I get to make that movie within the tango community.
You know the people, and you
I do.
Figured it out. Just tell me how you feel about the experience, Godfather.
When I was in Godfather 1, you know, what they did was they $100,000 for a screen test they wanted. Well, they had the screen test. It was a wasted money because Francis ended up with the cast he wanted anyway, that he originally wanted. And during Godfather
They
1,
didn't want him to have Al in the beginning, did they?
no. And Jimmy wanted this, you know, it was strange. And they had a standby director on the set physically in case they had to fire him. And that standby director's best friend was the first AD. So I gained a lot of confidence for Francis working under those conditions. And, you know, everybody says Paramount took the credit. That film could have been done at Disney or any studio, Roger Corman, anybody, as long as Francis was directing. And in the middle of Godfather 1, I think others, as well as myself, we sensed, hey, this is something that's going to really hit.
This is about America.
This is something, you know, that's really going to be a good film. And you felt that, you know. And then Godfather 2 was terrific too, but it wasn't as much fun because Jimmy Caan wasn't on the film. Because Jimmy is Brando. Everybody loves Jimmy. He lifts things. You know?
He tells a great story about you.
Oh, he's
you know,
great
you
to
heard
work
this.
with.
He tells a story about. I think he tells a story, but I'm almost sure. I'm not sure what movie it's about. But a director comes on and he says to you, "What I want you to do is I want you to take a couple of steps, stop, and smile." Do you remember this at all?
No, I mean, he may be elaborating this a little bit, but go ahead.
The story is that you silently just walked off the set, as if this guy was trying to tell you, I mean, what to do, and this was basic for you. You remember that at all?
I don't remember that, but Jimmy, you know how he stands with his shoulders, and he could have told me that story. I do remember saying to one director, "Look, why don't you put on my costume and play my part, and I'll go back to England and live." And I remember that, but you know, it was great working with Francis. I gained a lot of respect for him. It was a good experience, The Godfather. Wonderful.
You were so dedicated to research and finding something, Peg, finding the soul of a character. Where'd you find that?
Well, I didn't do a lot of research. I had a friend of mine from East Harlem that knew one of the big guys up there, and he said that that guy had a gopher. It's almost like a Secret Service man. He had a gopher that would light cigarettes for this guy. It was almost, he'd hold the chair. I mean, it was a very coveted position. And yet, if anybody made fun of that fact that you were like a gopher, you'd be in trouble. Yeah. So I remembered that, and I remembered it's like a Secret Service, always looking to take care of this guy, Brando.
Brando was brilliant in that.
Yeah, he was great to work with. We all
what?
It was, at one time, I think he, probably for most American actors, younger, he was like a hero, very much so, yeah. You know, we all respected him. Yeah.
Disappointed in the way it's turned out, in the sense that he's...
Well, I mean, he wasted a wonderful talent by, you know, getting fat and minimizing the the business, and wouldn't let his children, I guess that's what I've heard, saying that it's not a good profession. I think it's a fine profession to be an actor. What's wrong with it? You know, you bring joy to other people. You know, it's nice. I don't get it. So
you think more of that than it's just nice. I mean,
I don't get it with him, but that's his business, you know.
I've said that to him. I've talked to him about being on the program because he watches the program. And I said, I don't want to do this if you have contempt for your work.
Yeah.
What is it about acting? And he said, no, I don't have contempt for him. But
right, I don't know.
Because acting means what to you? Well,
it's a style, it's a lifestyle, you know. And I said the same thing one day that John Travolta said. I exist very nicely between the words action and cut. I feel when it's going well, I feel good. I feel like we do now, this natural, hopefully.
Yeah.
And you know, I enjoy showing characters and trying to do them as truthfully as I can, and you know, try to out of yourself. Like Sanford Meisner used to say, it's like making a chair. You make a good chair, so you make a nice character out of yourself. Yeah. You know, so you know, it's interesting. It's a wonderful profession, I think, and I'm fortunate to be doing what I like to do. I mean. And being paid well for it and having a wonderful lifestyle, I'm very fortunate. Sometimes we complain even with that, but actors tend to do that, and human nature tends to do that. But you know, even with all the complaints, it's a wonderful profession that I enjoy. I mean, I'm proud of it.
Great Santini.
Yeah, I enjoy doing that. I think
your father was a rear admiral.
Yeah, he
moved from San Diego to Annapolis.
Yeah, he was from Northern Virginia. They were Southerners, but pro-Union. They named my grandfather Abraham Lincoln Duvall. There were many pockets of Southerners who were not for secession.
Yeah.
He went to the Naval.
Western North Carolina had some of them.
The hills of Tennessee.
Right. Same place. Those two places come together.
Yeah. But my father went to the Naval Academy when he was 16 years old, and you know, he was a career naval officer. But he was more of a quiet guy, a brooder. The Great Santini, in the novel, Pat Conroy says, when the commanding officer of the family comes home, there's an invisible passing of the mantle to run the family that goes back to the career officer when he comes home for his leave of his shore leave or whatever. There was never that passing of the mantle in my family. My mother ran the show all the time. But he was more of a quiet. But Bull Meacham was more outgoing.
Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, well, it was written for a bigger stature guy. I don't know. I think of a bigger stature. I think maybe they had offered it to Gene Hackman. I think he turned it down, actually. So,
an old friend of yours.
Yeah,
from
old
early
friend.
New York acting
wonderful
career.
actor. And once people make it, Dustin, Hoff, all of us. Once you make it, you never see each other. It's a strangely fickle business.
And you were together in New York, though, trying to find it at the same time.
Exactly, idealizing, going for jobs and everything. But then I asked Francis, said, look, give me a shot, and I'll only ask once. And then he gave me the part, and it was a nice part.
No, Gene didn't do it. It wasn't.
I think he turned it down. Yeah. So it was meant for a bigger guy. So and it was nice working in the Philippines, and I worked for 6 weeks, and then I went away for 6 months and came back for 3 more weeks.
Where did you find that character? What was the...
Well, there was a guy over there that told me about the air cavalry, because in the writing it wasn't there. All the guys, it was a carryover from the air cavalry, from the horse cavalry of the last century, and also from the tanks that Patton commanded in the Second World War were like the cavalry division, since the cavalry became extinct. So here was the air cavalry. And my character, I found out they wore hats, spurs, but all the officers did. But there's a Fort Hood, I think there's a museum to these guys, when they flew the helicopters. And I understand there was a lot of marijuana, there was a lot of things over there that people turned the other way, and they did crazy things. And some people say it didn't exist, but I talked to people that said it.
It was also crazy set there, too, wasn't it? Because of everything that was going on with Francis' wife. We did a documentary about it.
Oh, yeah.
You had Marlon, and you had...
Yeah, Marlon came down his baby blue Mercedes in the jungle. I missed the part with Marlon, and then
You weren't shooting at the same time?
No, and then Dennis was whacked out half the time, Dennis Hopper.
And what's his name? Martin had a heart attack, didn't he, or something?
Yeah, he did.
On the set?
Yeah, he used to run and keep in shape, but then he smoked a lot, so there's a contradiction there. So, and the women of the community very proudly and very beautifully made us wonderful bamboo hooches as dressing rooms, and they were beautiful, and they were very proud of them. So we'd sit in there, and I would listen to Coppola rant and rave. He had more temper tantrums than the actors. He's really great to work with, and it was just at the end of each day we'd go back to the town. We were staying in individual homes where they put us up. We'd jump off the jeeps and we'd body surf for an hour, and then we'd go in and we'd eat. It was really nice working out there, and it was really out in the boondocks. There was one Roman Catholic priest from Queens who took care of that whole community in the middle of nowhere, and it was a wonderful 6 weeks, and then 3 weeks later.
What's his genius, Francis?
Francis, I think he's a wonderful storyteller. I think Luciana, my girlfriend, said he is the biggest dreamer she has ever seen in her lifetime. And he is a big dreamer.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, giant dreams.
Yeah.
And he made great movies at one time.
Great things come from big dreams.
Yeah, and another friend of mine said, look, you may not agree with these movies now, but he's a sleeping giant. And any minute he can wake up and look out. He can make another great masterpiece.
Yeah.
But he tells stories in a big way. You go up and visit his place, he said. Dean Tavares, who did all
up in Northern California.
Yeah, did all the artwork.
There's a golf course and a winery and whatever.
And one staircase he built, the Tavares brothers built. The one staircase in the winery cost $1 million. I mean, what is this?
Exactly. What's going on, Francis? Yeah.
It's funny. There was a kid named Jimmy Keene.
Yeah.
And he had a small part, and he had to stay 10 months because they wouldn't take him back in the hiatus, and he had one line. And he said, oh, Mr. Duvall, Mr. Duvall. And I made him call me Mr. Duvall so we'd get the character thing. And he used to watch me rehearse then. And the last dress rehearsal before we filmed, I said, it smells like it. And we were, victory! We were all imitating Brando. So now Jimmy Keene started imitating Brando. So when they wanted to do the censored version of The Godfather, Brando wanted $100,000 for 6 lines for the censored version on TV. So they got Jimmy Keene from Buffalo for $200, and he did Brando. That's where we started practicing. Oh, victory! And Jimmy Caan always used to say Brando when he laughs. He goes. So Brando's been. So Jimmy Keane did him for $200. You know.
Was your father a military man?
Yeah, he was.
Admiral?
Well, he was a retired rear admiral. He's active rank. He was a captain. Yeah, he went to the Naval Academy when he was 16.
Yeah.
And graduated in 1924. He was off the farm from Northern Virginia.
So you lived in a lot of places, I bet.
Yeah, we did. We moved around.
Yeah.
We were pretty transient.
You ended up in Principia College?
Yeah, in Southern Illinois. Small college that had a terrific little drama department. Just wonderful.
Is that what got you bitten by the acting bug?
Yeah, well, my parents kind of pushed me into it.
They said,
mother,
you're not going to be a mathematician, or
well,
you're not going to be a nuclear physicist. Maybe acting is good.
It was kind of, I took physics for 8 days. It was kind of an expedient thing to get me through school at the end of the Korean War, to kind of like gracefully get me through school academically, and then I began to really like it, you know. But they were the ones that
What did you like about it?
I just kind of liked something that I suddenly could kind of do well, and I started getting a few A's in school. And the first production was the story of Two Pierrots by Bill Snyder, a wonderful young writer from, he since teaches in southwestern Tennessee. It was a full-length mime play, the story of Two Pierrots, where I played a Harlequin clown. It was wonderful. And the man who choreographed it and directed it, Frank Parker at Principia College, he had been a dancer with Pavlova. And it was, and then the Pomeranz, who ran the Gateway Summer Theater in Bellport, Long Island. Yeah. They went to that school. There was just a small group of people, but it was Bobby Morse had gone there, and Ricky Morse. It's wonderful. So it was a wonderful little department.
Speaking of the Gateway, which is still there in Bellport, you did a view from the bridge there.
Yeah, first when I first met Ulu Grossbart, and we later did it off Broadway for on a commercial in a commercial run.
What made you a star? What movie made you a star?
I don't know. I think it was a gradual thing, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think that I had a nice career of various jobs, theater and movies, television, and on this track I had just the Horton Foote projects. Yeah. Starting with Killing Mockingbird, Tomorrow, The Chase, Tender Mercies, Convicts. Yeah. And Horton's a wonderful ride. Had I never had another career, that would have been a wonderful career. But then I had this career, and I think what made it was a catalyst to put us all into what you might call somewhat of stardom was The Godfather. Yeah. That was, although I'd done stuff before, that would kind of propel guys. Their careers went to a more obvious way than mine did. I've always been kind of a late bloomer. Now I'm kind of reaping the benefits of those earlier years more, because it seemed to me more parts are coming my way now more than ever.
Because why is that?
I don't know. Just maybe it's my time. It's my time.
It's better to come later than earlier, probably.
Yeah, earlier I had a good career too, but it doesn't seem to diminish as I get older, and it doesn't like. I feel more confident, and I always try to be diverse, always have been. And I always told Sanford Meisner when I worked with him at the neighborhood play, I said I always would try to think of myself in the potential, always in the potential state. So until I wrap it up, I always look for new things, and fortunately a lot of different things come my way, diverse things.
Does a time come when you're on that track, when you're in the plays, when you're at Sanford Meisner, and a lot of people were there? Hackman was there?
Well, no, they were different. I actually met them. They weren't they were at the Pasadena Playhouse. I knew Gene in New York. We would look for jobs together, and he said, "This guy's going to come with a shock of black hair and sleep on my floor." It was Dustin Hoffman. But we all met in New York. But actually,
you didn't study together.
No, not so much. We went over with Lonnie Chapman for a while. Dusty and I did. But I started out with Sanford Meisner, which was like fear and trembling. It's like ah. But
is that where you learned to act?
Well, it helped. I think I did summer theater before that. I learned certain things from Sanford. I think certain things. Character acting. I don't think that can be taught. Which was stressed over that, which was good, the improvisation, the moment-to-moment work, which I think is so important within the form even. And I think people that left and graduated from Sanford Meisner, some of them lose that. But basically what he taught, and others do too, I'm sure, was within the form of any given text. There's always that ability to improvise within the form and let it go a different way each night or on stage or in film. Take 2, take 3, you can go a different way and feel free and relaxed enough to let it go a different way, a spontaneous way within the form.
Francis.
Coppola.
Working with Francis, yeah.
Good. It was great.
It was good?
Yeah. See, when I first worked with Francis, it was in the Rain People.
Yeah.
Because I think Rip Torn had been in that, and something happened. They parted ways, and I came in with Jimmy Caan, who it was great to work with, And after that, we all tried out for The Godfather. And he was always a distant, I didn't quite get it with Francis. He was always kind of dark. And I want to write a book someday called The Rushes Are Great, because all directors come out of the Rushes saying how great it is. But Francis would come out forlorn looking. He was
we didn't
always,
get it.
He was always searching, which, you know. And so when we did Godfather 1, he still felt like a stranger to me, but I gained a lot of respect for him, a lot of respect, because there was a standby, understudy director following him around on this set in case they had to fire him. He would take over. And the first AD was this understudy director's best friend. So he really had to work under the gun with the powers that be in Hollywood, Coppola. And I gained a lot of respect for him.
Bob Evans at that time.
Yeah, a lot of people take credit, but that film could have been made in Disney. It could have been made in that studio down in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Yeah,
any place, as long as Francis was directing. It was his film. I don't care what anybody says.
Do you think it's an American classic?
Yeah, I do. Those first two. That's really fine filmmaking. Wonderful filmmaking.
What made it that? The acting, the story?
I don't know. It's just kind of
the idea
in the middle of
that this was a story about America and this was a story about larger than just gangsters.
Yeah, I think it was a bit romanticized. Somebody said when they read the book, they turned the last page to look for an application to join the mob. You know, it's a little, but still, it's wonderful filmmaking, and I just think it was a mixture of things. At one point, Jimmy Caan said to Francis, what do you mean? You take all the credit. You don't think we had something to do with it? You know, it's pretty outspoken. But I think that during the making of Godfather 1, from our point of view, maybe eternity-wise, it doesn't mean that much, but I felt we were in something very special that was going to do well. And be
Pacino
important.
was a big risk for him.
Big what?
A risk for Francis.
Well, yeah, they put him in the gang who couldn't shoot straight. Yeah. And then they got him back, and it was a whole thing, and it was kind of, but he was, I can't think of anybody who could play that part better, except if Travolta was now, then bop, the last thing he did, he can play that well.
Yeah, this thing, I saw this where he plays a bad guy.
Yeah, the thing Get Shorty.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Get Shorty's great. Man. Yeah, I was doing something else he's done.
He should have won the Oscar.
Shorty. He should have won the Oscar.
He wasn't even up.
Yeah. But you think he should have won? Best actor should have been in 1996.
Certainly right up there. I mean,
well, why didn't he get nominated?
Who knows? Who knows?
The politics of Hollywood.
Why did the other guy, the guy that did Othello, Lawrence Fishburne, was excellent.
Didn't get nominated either.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, that's whatever.
Why didn't you do Godfather 3?
Well, they said a lot of things about that, but it boiled down to the fact that let's everybody admit they were doing it for money. Why wait 20 years to do Godfather? Francis, he was doing it for money. I said, I don't mind taking half of what Pacino gets or whatever. Don't offer me like a fourth of what he gets or what others get. Let's be equal about this. And they wouldn't, so I said, I pass. He came to my farm in Virginia, parked his car, came in, I sat him down in the kitchen. He always wanted my mother's Maryland crab cake recipe. I said, I'm going to cook it for you. And I cooked it. He wanted we talked a little about the When he left, he forgot the recipe. He called me up several times, more concerned that he forgot the crab cake recipe than would I be in Godfather 3.
I said something.
And then when I was in Godfather, he said, well, I made the recipe. I didn't have your recipe, but I made it, and it was as good as yours. I said, no, it wasn't. But I'll give it to him someday.
And then Apocalypse Now came later.
Well, that was after Godfather 2, but it was before. Yeah, exactly. I worked on that for like 6 weeks and then came back 6 months later to finish the first half. I mean, it was really, because Brando came in, the typhoons came. But that was interesting working in the Philippines. That was quite interesting.
Your relationship with Francis is good?
I guess. I haven't seen him in a while. I mean, why not? I mean, we could work together again.
Why isn't he making films?
I think he is. Isn't he?
I don't know. I mean, you don't see him.
I happen to like Dracula. Some people maybe didn't. I thought there was some wonderful things in Dracula. I mean, maybe some of his earlier work is better. I don't know. But a guy like that's so talented, look out, because around the corner he's going to come with something someday.
Yeah, you bet. He's got it to deliver.
Yeah.
He just.
I mean, when you take those two Godfathers, you take Apocalypse Now, and then you take The Conversation with Gene Hackman, where Gene was so great. Well, those are wonderful films. That's about as good as it gets in some areas.
And how many great scripts have you seen in your life?
I don't know. Great? I don't know. It's all so subjective. I mean, we were talking about a terrific script that got made that never wasn't done well, I hear. Like Terry Malick, the great director. He used to be a wonderful writer. Now he's coming back. You see scripts sometimes. Somebody said they want to make every year that certain scripts join the 5 best films that never get made.
Yeah.
That some never get made, that are really wonderful scripts. But, you know, I think that there's some really good ones around that you do see in some, you know, I love the work of Horton Foote.
Yeah, I do too.
Didn't
he win a Pulitzer a couple of years ago?
Yeah, he did, for his play. He's just one of the best ever, and he's a good friend, and we've had a wonderful working relationship.
Yeah, I mean, you are to him what, you know, Jason Robards is to O'Neill. Huh?
Well, I find a kinship with his work, and I love Horton's work. Yeah, we've done quite a few things together. I remember when we were doing Convicts, he'd sit there like this, and he'd be reading and writing, and I'd say, Horton, can I try it? Oh, Bobby, try whatever you want. And then he'd watch the tape and say, cut, and you go back to reading. And so then we came in one day, I had to sit on a grave and talk about the Convicts, and I said, Horton, we changed the whole thing. I sat on the grave, and I suddenly made believe it was my mother I was sitting on. Because I thought, he said, oh, I like that. I changed the whole concept of the scene at that moment to like an improvisation, but it didn't violate his script. And he's open to that if it's done well, because he's open to, like, he's not so overly protective. He can't let it wander in a certain way, so long as his scenes are preserved, you know, within the form.
Great Santini.
Yeah, I enjoyed doing that. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Did you draw at all on knowing what the military life was like, knowing and understanding the code?
Well, I think so. Some of that sense of being transient once again. You know, we were, I still, that's why I don't mind traveling in the film business. Since I was young, we've always moved. Yeah. And I never grew up with that sometimes wonderful thing of people in cities that have a neighborhood,
roots,
same friends.
And stuff, yeah.
Never had that. But I think some of that, of moving around, that character was different from my father. My father was quiet and more brooding. That guy was more overt, and when he articulated.
Your mother was effervescent and passionate.
In the book, The Great Santini, they talk about when a military man comes home from a tour of duty, imperceptibly the change of commands goes from the wife to the father for the time he's home till he goes back on duty. Yeah. And my family was never that. My mother ran the show all the time.
Even when he came back.
Yes. Yes, my mother was very strong-willed.
Just listen to this. So, when you think about a career beyond The Godfather and Apocalypse Now and The Great Santini, Network, The Paper, Wrestling Ernest Hemingway, Rambling, you like that one?
Yeah, a lot.
Richard Harris.
Yeah,
it was Richard Harris who I was talking about, who acted with James Earl Jones and another, who was talking about how they sort of, you know.
I loved that movie, and I liked also.
Why'd you love it?
I love that character, that old Cuban guy.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that character. And I like working in Rambling Rose, because there's another wonderful writer, in Martha Coolidge, like in two lady directors. Some woman rights director said, Bobby Duvall working with women directors. I loved it. Working in, Rambling.
Well, they thought you were too tough? You were too...
No,
what?
Women, I don't mind being directed by it as long as they have talent. I mean, you know, like with Martha Coolidge in Rambling Rose, it was like a motherly presence behind the camera.
Yeah.
And with Randa Haynes behind the camera, it was like a very intelligent, somewhat neurotic sister behind the camera. You know? They're both very talented ladies.
Yeah. Now, do you have a reputation for being tough, demanding, perfectionist?
Well, I like things to go right. I mean, I've had my moments on film with directors, but I think a lot of people do. I try not to make it an indulgent thing, and hopefully it doesn't become that. Whenever you have conflicts, it's hopefully for the betterment of the film.
Yeah, you fight for principle as you see it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes on the spot things flare up, but and then they calm down. But I think it's all part of the work process. Yeah. I've worked with actors who tend to sabotage the thing. It can't be to sabotage the project. It can only be to help it.
Sabotage it on purpose.
Yeah, I won't mention names, but in one instance, it was like sabotaging the project.
Well, that would seem to me, if you were on the project, you'd be a little PO'd about that.
Well, but you got to be careful how you handle it. Somebody will quit. I just wanted to get through that experience. It was a strange
and move
experience.
on.
But even if sometimes if it's if things become a little difficult, it's for the betterment of the project, not to be detrimental.
Have any of your projects been just collecting a paycheck, not because you really...
Perhaps. I try to make it not that, but maybe that's some you're more, emotionally involved with than others, I mean, I would have to say my favorite part of all time is Lonesome Dove.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Why? Is it you?
Well, when I met Larry McMurtry years ago, he said I should play Colonel Call, and a lot of people said that. They offered me Call. So I said to my agent, look, you have a good working relation with James Garner. He was going to play Gus. I said, if you call him up, you handle him, and he switches parts, I'll be in this project. Otherwise, I won't. Because my wife, I was separated.
They'd already given it to him.
Well, they had offered.
Yeah.
Said I'd played parts like Gus on stage, but not in film, more muted. But the people that knew me the best said, no, you're more like Gus. Well, even the author said I should play Carl. So he said, I'll get on the phone. So he got on the phone. 4 hours later, he called me. He said, James cannot do this part because he can't be on a horse. He has a bad back. I said, well, go after the other part. Otherwise, I don't want to be in the movie because I've done that part before. Yeah. And you know, Tommy Lee was wonderful, but Tommy was good for that. But I wanted to play this other guy because there's a certain part of me that could play that people hadn't seen, maybe more in theater. So, you know, somebody says, when is going to be another Lonesome Dove? I said, not for another 100 years. This character is like Shakespeare, I think. Wow. I said, let the English play Hamlet in King Lear. That's wonderful. I'll play Augustus McCrae. I mean, he's like a modern-day knight. Well, 1860s, 80s knight by horseback, saving women, loving life. I mean, he's a very indigenous guy to our culture and Texas culture, which Texas is like a separate country anyway.
But you saw yourself in that character.
Yeah, I did.
You know,
I felt
your sense of passion for life, your obsession with things that.
And it was such good writing; it could draw you along. And I went out in the final. I did research, not a lot. The final person I saw, something told me to go. I went out and found Sammy Baugh, the old quarterback of the Washington Redskins.
Oh yeah.
And just the way he gestured.
Right. I remember Sammy Baugh.
Yeah, to this day, I don't think he knows who I was. We went out and saw him. He's 70 years old. Gestured. Just the way he gestured, and I see how he threw a pass, and somehow I got these gestures from this guy. We said goodbye to him, shook hands, and I still don't think he knew who we were, really. It was way out in the middle of nowhere in Texas. But he was 70 years old. He was like a Texas Ranger. Straight as an arrow, still a warrior, you know, as an ex-football player.
Yeah. Why wasn't that made into a feature film rather than for television?
I don't know. I guess they figured, and maybe in a way it's better because you couldn't make it. It'd be hard to make an 8-hour film. Yeah. And that way, it was another thing. To develop that character over those 4 episodes was a wonderful luxury. Because you couldn't do that in a feature film. And, you know, and I think now, I would have gone off Broadway to play that part. But I think the television was the place for that part, at least from a selfish point of view. Yeah. Developing that character.
To really get
absolutely
time
you couldn't
to
do it in
inhabit the character.
Yeah.
Stalin.
Yeah.
You said once, you can't play evil. You have to play behavior.
I think so, yeah. That was the hardest thing I've ever done. Tough, just going over there, everything. Like somebody says, you're going out on history in an anthropological way as an American playing a Russian in a Russian country, you know. And it was very difficult. It was, but I enjoyed the experience in a strange way. I know it had mixed acceptance, and somebody said, "Why did you use accents?" I said, "Well, why?" It was an English guy. I said, "Well, why do you English play in that thing with Sean Connery? All the Russian admirals have English accents. I mean, why shouldn't I give some hint of believability to that, you know?" And I know some people liked it, some didn't like it. But like I was told, and I didn't know he was still living, the senior Mikhailkov, Nikita Mikhailkov's father was like 6'8". He was Stalin's personal poet. Yeah. He's about 88 years old now. And he told Ivan Passer that he said that I touched the soul of Stalin. So I'm going to believe them rather than the Washington Post or some of these periodicals who really don't know anything about acting, or, you know, I'm going to believe that more than I am the negative. Yeah. I'd be in trouble if the reverse were true. He said I was terrible, and these certain other people in these periodicals said.
The critics loved it, and people who knew Stalin said you didn't get it, then you feel worse.
Exactly. And if this guy said that was like a very touching thing.
Do you know what he meant when he said that? Do you know what it was about your performance
I don't know.
that
I don't know
somehow for them said that's Stalin?
I don't know. I just know that it's tough to play in those miniseries because a lot of time you're playing history.
Yeah.
There's a lot of speeches where you end up playing history. You end up playing just a kind of a verbal thing. I do feel that the final scene with my daughter and that's as good as I've ever done, because a lot of it was half improvised. I've made up stuff, and it just went a certain way that I felt was very Russian. Because there was an Armenian actor that said to me, when you play this part, I don't know what this means to this day, but yet I do know what it means. He says, remember the East. That Oriental thing.
Yeah.
So it meant nothing to me, yet it meant something. Somehow that meant something to me. And in that final scene, it all worked. Now, maybe other scenes didn't work as well, but I think maybe in that scene I captured something that would make Mikhailkov say that.
Do you understand anything about his meanness? I mean, his evil?
No, I just finished playing Eichmann.
Which is
my company, the Little Butcher's Run with TNT, with a wonderful company to work with. little easier than HBO. I don't mean to get into politics here, but Turner's outfit and Billy Graham directing. Arliss Howard, wonderful actor, played Malkin, and
you play Adolf
Eichmann. And like the writer said, which is so right, you can't. I can't play evil. He doesn't think of himself as evil, so I can't play that. I have to play a guy that goes to work every day, drinks water, talks to an intelligent talk show host, and comes into a city from Virginia. It's the same kind of thing. As Stalin, same thing as Eichmann. He, from his point of view, except maybe on a certain night, he doesn't think of himself as evil.
But here, what's interesting about this character is that you got all those interviews that have been published with Eichmann. You remember? And when they went in there, and there's a guy who was part of the Israeli Department of Justice who interviewed him, and interviewed him, and interviewed him, and they got all this stuff because I've
never got any kind of guilt.
Yeah,
it was all not only following orders, but it was the law of the land. So therefore, he's a strange guy.
Did you understand him at all? I mean, can you understand somebody who's part of the enormity of that
no.
genocide?
So a lot of people say, a lot of people in that position would have done the same. A lot wouldn't have. Look at Watergate on a much less scale. I mean, trivial by comparison. That the guys that bailed out, and the others who didn't went to jail. So there's some point maybe the consequences would be too big if they bailed out within that Nazi syndrome of government. I don't know. But from his point of view, he's not evil, and from Stalin's point of view, he's not evil. So they were just doing their duty, so to speak.
Let me talk a little bit as we close about your obsessions. Horses.
I know hobbies become obsessions, and you try to do them as well as you do your profession. Sometimes you can't, but you try. Arliss Howard called me several years ago and said, what did you do when you were a young actor in between jobs? I said, there's three things: hobbies, hobbies, and more hobbies. Keeps you off of dope, it keeps you out of trouble, keeps you hopefully on the straight and narrow. And you try to go after a hobby with as much passion and
well, that's what I'm getting
at.
So horses, and you did everything with horses, and you in fact come back to it big. And you also had an accident very similar to what happened to Christopher Reeve.
I did. My horse flipped. Fino, I sold the horse for a lot. It was named after the best tango dancer I ever saw, Fino. And he won a big Grand Prix in Ireland and made a lot of money off him. But before that, when I used to exercise him, went over a small series of jumps. The horse flipped, I flipped, hit on my head. Several days later, I rode in a little horse show locally, and then that night I got a massage, which I think you're not supposed to do. And for the next few weeks, it was pretty uncomfortable sleeping. But fortunately, it was not like what he went through, and I hope that he recovers as quickly as possible.
Tennis, you went obsessed about tennis, and the story is that you not only did you play though, you went to tennis late. I mean, you were middle-aged.
I was about 35, 6. Yeah,
35, 6. And you started winning celebrity tournaments. You got good.
I won some, and doubles.
Yeah.
Doubles. Yeah. Ronnie Holmberg and I beat Chuck McKinley when he was over the hill, and a guy that was 200th in the world. So
Ronnie Holmberg played a lot of
Ronnie
tennis,
was a good friend of mine, and he said, come on there, press the net, press the net. He'd coach, and we did pretty good. But I was okay. I wasn't the best in show business. I was one of the best.
Who's the best, do you think?
Well, Dabney, I think Coleman was.
Dabney Coleman was really?
Yeah, he was. I beat him in doubles, but not in single. But he played all his life. And when you play against another actor, you're going to put
it forward. The guy who was in 8 is Enough, the Brady.
Well, no, the best of all was the kid. He beat McEnroe twice in 6 months. Vinnie Van Patten.
Yeah, Van Patten.
Well, that was another level.
That whole family's obsessed by it.
Yeah, Vinnie was, if he'd even stuck to it more, he's a wonderful. That kid could do anything. Ride horse, he could do anything. He's a wonderful athlete.
Tango.
Once again, you try to do things when you get older that if you were younger, I think I'd had a really great crack at that.
At being a tango dancer?
Well, club dancer, not professional. I do okay. I mean,
so what is it about it though for you?
Well, it's just something that I can't explain it. It's without being, I don't want to be pretentious or whatever. I like it very much. I like it only the way they do it in the clubs in Argentina, the Milonga, not the professional, not the choreograph. I've written a script on it. I'm going to do it in several years. Connected to 2 cities, New York and Buenos Aires, with the underworld.
Now don't you have a tango dancer that you in the?
I brought a guy up with me, great guy, Nestor Salvatore Ryan, or he's
teaching.
He's teaching classes in my barn. Before I split up with my wife, we built a beautiful barn. We had a sleep at the wheel play. It's a wonderful place. So he's up giving clinics in tango. His wife came up today.
And you're getting better and better and better and better.
We were. It's like when you start late on something, but it's something I have a good feel for, and it's like. Physically, I have to warm up because I can't, maybe I think I'll take up a little yoga to get more limber, but, I have a good feel for it. I'm what they call a milonguero. I can hold my own. I mean, like club dancer. And this guy, he's a wonderful guy, so I get a little better. And then
the women love it?
Yeah, Danella Maria, also people here who teach. I only hang out with Argentines to learn because it's an ethnic thing. They don't dance it, they walk it. It's a certain way they walk. And the Americans, when they learn the tango, do not want to learn the walk. They want to get Americans sometimes they want to get to the fancy stuff, and there's a simplicity about it. It's very nice. But, I just like it. You try to get a little better and enjoy something. If you have it in a session, you try to enjoy it too, on the best days.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you, sir.
Robert Duvall. A Family Thing with James Earl Jones. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.